A man spends 4 hours zip-tying blue tarps to wooden pallets under a freeway overpass. By noon, it's a crime. In the 6 months after a Supreme Court ruling over 150 cities across America criminalized structures like this, not because they're dangerous, but because they exist. What enforcement officers call pallet palaces are now grounds for arrest. This is the architecture of survival and the laws designed to erase it. For years, the Ninth Circuit Court ruled that punishing homeless individuals for sleeping outdoors when no shelter beds are available violated the Eighth Amendment. The involuntary status of being homeless couldn't be criminalized. In June 2024, the Supreme Court upended that framework. The court ruled 6-3 in Grants Pass versus Johnson that cities can enforce camping bans even when shelter space isn't available. Justice Sotomayor's dissent was blunt. The majority focuses almost exclusively on the needs of governments and leaves the most vulnerable in our society with an impossible choice: either stay awake or be arrested. The response was immediate. California passed more than 40 camping ban ordinances. Governor Newsom pushed cities to ban camping in one place for more than 3 nights, building semi-permanent structures and blocking sidewalks. Texas, Tennessee, and Missouri passed statewide bans. Florida's HB 1365, signed in March 2024, took effect October 1st. One of the most aggressive anti-homeless laws in American history. But what exactly are people building that's now illegal? When enforcement officers refer to pallet palaces, structures built with blue tarps and tents, they say, "You're not allowed to do this, you are trespassing." But here's what they're actually describing. Wooden shipping pallets stacked to create a raised floor, keeping bodies off cold concrete. Tarps stretched overhead at angles to shed rain. Sometimes insulation, cardboard, newspaper, fabric scraps layered between. These aren't whims. They're engineering solutions. A pallet floor prevents hypothermia. A sloped tarp prevents collapse under snow. The angle matters. Too flat and water pools, too steep and wind rips it away. Someone figured this out through trial and error, through waking up soaked, through watching their shelter collapse at 2 in the morning. Newsom's model ordinance specifically bans building semi-permanent structures such as makeshift shacks on public property. The more effective the shelter, the more illegal it becomes. Cardboard boxes broken down and reassembled, layered triple thick for wind resistance. The same material protects electronics in Amazon warehouses. Here, it protects human bodies. Corners reinforced with duct tape, flaps arranged to create ventilation without losing heat. The smell inside is musty, close, but dry. Camping bans typically prohibit storing property on public land. In practice, this means the box you're sleeping in can be seized as stored property while you're still inside it. With over 170,000 people living in tents and cars in California alone, vehicles become homes. Windows covered with reflective sunshades for privacy. Back seats folded flat. A portable stove wedged in the footwell. Clothing hung from handles creates makeshift room dividers. Some people insulate wheel wells with foam. Others run battery-powered fans in summer heat that turns cars into ovens. But ordinances include buffer zones near schools, parks, or businesses, which in many cities means there's nowhere left to park legally. The geography of permission keeps shrinking. When enough people cluster together, organization emerges. Shared cooking areas, waste disposal systems, pathways between tents marked with stones or sticks, safety patrols rotating through the night. Communities form. Someone knows first aid, someone else can fix a broken zipper. Information flows which churches serve breakfast, which corners police ignore, which shelters have bed bug outbreaks. Newsom's ordinance targets camping in one place for more than 3 nights in a row. Community becomes illegal, mutual aid becomes a crime. The structures that keep people alive get classified as nuisances to be cleared. Concrete pillars create natural windbreaks. Overhead protection already exists, no construction needed, just inhabitation. A sleeping bag wedged into an alcove where traffic noise echoes but rain never reaches. Texas, HB 978. Specifically targets camping on property owned by state or local government, including parks, bridges, overpasses, sidewalks, and public parking areas. Geography itself is outlawed. The places that offer basic protection, shelter from elements built into infrastructure, are now forbidden territory. Here's what the ordinances don't mention. There is no state licensing process for shelters, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development tracks shelter bed numbers but no information about resident deaths, health, or safety. Now that the Supreme Court has granted cities power to ban sleeping outside, homeless Californians face a crucial decision: try to get into a shelter rife with reports of violence, theft, and health hazards, or risk going to jail. Public records show that most cities have seemingly ignored state laws aimed at reforming dangerous conditions in shelters. The structures being demolished, often safer than the shelters being offered. A tarp doesn't steal your belongings. A cardboard box doesn't wake you at 5 a.m. for mandatory chapel. A pallet floor doesn't have bed bugs. Without opening more shelters or affordable housing, breaking up camps does nothing but shuffle people from spot to spot, severing ties to caseworkers and medical clinics. That disruption, plus fines and arrests, makes it harder for people to find housing. They're not criminalizing danger, they're criminalizing visibility. Bans often allow for steep fines and jail time. In Tennessee, the felony provision has drawn criticism from legal advocacy groups, with the National Homelessness Law Center calling it the harshest anti-homeless law in American history. Tennessee courts have upheld enforcement through early 2026, with hundreds of citations and Nashville and Memphis having the highest enforcement activity. Tennessee introduced legislation allowing deadly force to prevent trespassing on land, which advocates expect to disproportionately target homeless people. These escalations are chilling. A man builds a shelter to survive winter. The city tears it down. He builds another citation, another fine he can't pay, another warrant. The cycle doesn't end homelessness. It deepens it. The idea behind anti-camping laws is to make homelessness so uncomfortable people won't want to experience it. But homelessness is already incredibly uncomfortable. Nobody chooses a pallet floor over a bed. Nobody prefers a tarp roof over solid walls. 22 states are considering new anti-homeless laws as part of a coordinated national campaign driven by right-wing, billionaire-backed groups like the Cicero Institute. Founded by Joe Lonsdale, co-founder of tech firm Palantir, the Institute provides template legislation. In Georgia and Oklahoma, Goldwater Institute template bills will let residents sue cities if they believe property values dropped, because anti-homeless laws weren't enforced aggressively enough, meaning taxpayer dollars spent on pointless lawsuits instead of real solutions. Bills in Hawaii, Iowa, North Carolina, and Wisconsin create drug-free homeless services zones that punish people differently for the same crime depending on whether they sleep outside, and even punish those who provide food, care, and shelter. Your experience with the law depends almost entirely on which city you're in. A night sleeping outside in Austin, Texas, carries different legal consequences than the same night in Portland, Oregon. The patchwork nature of US law means your rights depend entirely on where you are. Sleeping in one city might bring a warning. The same act 10 miles away might bring arrest. The structures aren't the problem. They're symptoms of a massive housing shortage that's pushed up rents and home prices faster than wages, a trend made worse by pandemic price spikes and inflation. Over 580,000 individuals experienced homelessness in the United States in 2022. The number is rising. The shelters are being banned. The question remains, where are people supposed to go? An empty lot at dusk, where an encampment was cleared, fresh tire tracks in dirt, a single blue tarp corner fluttering caught in chain-link fence. The tarps will return. They always do, because homelessness doesn't disappear when you make the shelters illegal. It just becomes invisible, until it can't be anymore.